26 sinister small-town hauntings revealed. Terrifying true stories of the cursed and haunted. The Johnson family thought they'd left the chaos of city life behind when they moved to Millhaven. That first night in their grand old Victorian home, as they tucked the kids into bed, an unnerving chill filled the air. The sun slipped behind the mountains, casting twisted shadows that danced grotesquely on the walls. Just as Mike closed the creaky window, Sarah shuddered. "Did you hear that?" "It's just the wind, Sarah," Mike reassured her, but doubt crept into his voice. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, sharper. Outside, the old trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches swaying in a ghostly rhythm. Ella, perched on her bed, murmured about an imaginary friend named Clara. "She knows secrets about the house, Daddy," she chimed innocently. Sarah gave an uneasy chuckle, brushing it off as childhood whimsy. But Mike's unease thrummed deeper. "Just stories," he said, though it sounded hollow even to him. When Liam refused to play outside alone, fear slithered through their home like the heavy fog that often blanketed Millhaven. Things only twisted more insidiously from there. Flickering lights bathed the rooms in erratic glows that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Mike felt eyes watching him from the corners, shadows that whispered unintelligible threats. Was it just his imagination? He wouldn't let himself believe that. Not yet. Then came the news report. Families had vanished in Millhaven normal, everyday lives snuffed out without a trace. Disturbance spread through the town, the once cheerful chatter replaced by hushed tones and wide-eyed glances. "What has been happening to our neighbors?" Sarah gasped, running her fingers through her hair in a panic. Mike clenched his jaw. He had to find out. Buried in the attic, Mike stumbled across yellowed newspaper clippings. The words pulled him in. Folklore about sacrifices, dark rituals meant to ensure prosperity in Millhaven. The hair on the back of his neck prickled. Could their home be related to these horrors? He felt sick, a chill monster creeping through him. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The nights grew heavier with dread. Shadows crawled across the walls, echoing whispers of secrets too horrifying to fathom. One evening, Mike caught their neighbor, Mr. Hargrove, loitering just beyond the yard's perimeter. The old man's thin smile triggered unease. "Stay safe, folks," he called, his voice dripping with an ominous undertone. That knife, glinting faintly in the dark as he glanced back, sent waves of dread washing over Mike. What was he protecting? What ancient oath clung to him? As the walls closed in around them, the air thickened with whispers of despair. Had they stumbled into something far more sinister than they could ever understand? Unearthly sounds erupted from the walls, gouging into the last remnants of comfort they had left. The broken hope shattered further when Ella insisted Clara had a message something dreadful awaited them. As panic tightened its grip, Mike's heart raced. They were trapped in a horror story woven with blood and darkness. Would they unravel the malevolence lurking just beneath the surface? The flickering of the lights grew frantic, shadows beckoning them to know the terrible truth. As hours stretched into an uneasy night, the Johnson household felt smaller, almost suffocating. Mike paced back and forth in the living room, the old floorboards creaking under his weight, a soundtrack to his rising panic. Just moments before, he had dismissed Ella's childish imagination because beneath the innocent facade, dread burned brightly. "What does Clara want, Ella?" Mike asked, forcing his voice to remain calm, but it cracked like shattered glass. Ella stood in the doorway, the dim hallway light casting long shadows across her face. she said we shouldn't be here. The words rolled off her tongue like an ancient chant, sending chills cascading down Mike's spine. Clara wasn't just a figment. She felt real, and whatever she wanted, the thought was paralyzing. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, their branches scratching against the windows like skeletal fingers. Mike glanced at Sarah, her face pale, as she hugged Liam tightly. His son stared up at them, blue eyes wide with terror, an echo of the descent that had gripped the family. Each flicker of the light bulb sent panicked energy surging through them. "Let us go check on the kids," Sarah whispered, glancing nervously towards Ella. The air felt electric as they moved down the hallway, shadows creeping behind every corner. It was as if the house itself held its breath, waiting. In the children's room, the sight that met them was chilling. Ella was not tucked under her blanket as they had left her. Instead, she stood by the window, her face illuminated by the moonlight. "Clara wants me to come play," she said softly, but there was a strange tone. Her voice almost seemed to echo, distant yet close. "No, Ella, you need to come back to bed," Mike shouted, his heart racing. Tension wound through the air as the flickering light seemed to react to his panic, plunging them into darkness before returning to hostile brightness. "Let her be," Sarah pleaded, her face twisted in concern. "What if she is just being a child?" But Mike could see the fear growing in her eyes. They both sensed it. The very walls were listening, holding tight to secrets best left buried. The room trembled as an unseen force pushed against them, knocking Mike off balance. "Ella!" he cried desperately. But she stood rooted, entranced, staring beyond the glass like she was watching some unseen amusement unfold in the distance. The faint whispers returned, curling around them like a fog, menacing, inviting. "She must be part of it," Mike yelled, overwhelmed by a mix of protectiveness and terror. "We need to leave now." Just then, the closet door swung open, a sudden rush of icy air spilling forth, howls trickling out, echoing with sorrow and madness. From its depths, figures flickered, shapes tangled in shadow that beckoned to the child. The air thickened, black, cloying, as if the house were clutching them, trying to pull them deeper into its malevolence. Fear seeped into them, wrapping around their throats like a noose. Mike lunged towards Ella, but she jerked backwards, eyes wide and expression changed, vacant and knowing. "Clara said it's time," she chanted, voices swirling around her making his blood run cold. "Ella, no!" Sarah cried, darting forward. But the moment she crossed the threshold, a piercing shriek ripped through the air, reverberating off the walls like thunder. Suddenly, all the lights extinguished. It wasn't just the electricity. They had been plunged into a darkness so profound it felt alive, each breath deafening in the silence. Panic flooded Mike's veins. He had lost sight of his wife. "Sarah!" he yelled, heart hammering in his chest. A response didn't come. With dread pooling inside him, he flicked his phone's flashlight on, the beam cutting through the void. He turned to find Ella still standing in a trance, Clara's voice echoing softly around them. "It's just the beginning. What would it take to break her from this spell?" A desperate thought crossed Mike's mind. If they were to save Ella, he would have to face whatever hidden terror dwelled within this house. But was there a chance for escape, or was it too late? As shadows danced closer, feelings of helplessness stirred. Could he confront the darkness that now seemed to whisper his name? The darkness pressed in around Mike like a suffocating blanket. He swung the phone's flashlight in frantic arcs, searching for any sign of Sarah, of anything familiar, but the beams bounced uselessly off the walls, revealing nothing but the oppressive black. "Sarah!" he shouted again, voice cracking, panic clawing at his throat. The whispers had grown louder, swirling around him like a tempest, and among them, a chilling laugh. It slithered through the air, wrapping around his heart with icy fingers. Ella remained unmoving, an eerie silhouette against the dim glow of his phone. Her vacant expression didn't stir the waves of terror inside him. It was her stillness, unnaturally serene, that gripped him with fear. The light flickered and dimmed, creating a pulsing rhythm that seemed to mock his desperation. Then, a low growl rumbled from the closet. The sound seemed to resonate from the very bones of the house. Micah's hand gripped the doorframe, and he willed himself not to flee. He moved toward Ella, forced himself to take one agonizing step after another, whispering urgently, "Ella, please don't listen to Clara. You need to come back to me." But her only response was a dreamy smile, as if she were hearing music only she could perceive. "We're going to play forever," she said, her tone sickly sweet, uncanny. Behind her, shadows wriggled and twisted, shapes crawling from the depths of the closet. Panic surged through Mike again, igniting a primal fight-or-flight instinct. With clenched fists he called out, "Ella, if you can hear me, we can leave. We can go outside, where it's safe." The words felt hollow, echoing emptily in the dark. From beside him, a sudden crash shuddered through the house. The sound ricocheted off the walls like thunder, pulling Mike's attention away. He turned, heart racing. The front door had flung open, revealing a faint glow outside, as if the world beyond offered a sliver of salvation. "Sarah!" he yelled, desperate for her to emerge from the shadows. But the wind roared through the open door, carrying with it voices, hisses, and cries that twisted into a cacophony of confusion. The glow from outside flickered, then disappeared, swallowed back into the night. The sudden loss of light caused the creeping shadows to rush toward him. The room felt alive with malice, walls pulsing like a living entity. Mike's heart pounded wildly against his chest. "I want to lose you, Ella," he shouted, lurching forward and grasping her arm tightly. "Let go," she hissed, jerking free with surprising strength. "She's waiting." Panic surged. As Mike lunged again, the room trembled, and the walls groaned. Above, there was a sickening snap, then the lights flickered back to life. But instead of illuminating safety, they revealed a horror festering in the corners of the room. Dark silhouettes crept closer, pinched faces staring out with hollow eyes filled with an unspeakable hunger. "Ellie, come now!" He pulled her towards the door, but she resisted. The space between them quivered, charged with tension as the things in the shadows drew nearer, their whispers now a chorus of bitter laughter. "Stay with us." The truth of Clara's hold solidified in Mike's gut. They weren't just fleeting shadows or spirits of the past. They were jealous, starving for possession and control. He could feel their eyes boring into him. But how could he fight when chaos threatened to tear the very fabric of his family apart? "Run!" The urgency burst from Mike as he tugged at Ella. She hesitated, confusion clouding her eyes. He felt the room shift around them, walls pulsing with every heartbeat. Then something cold brushed against his neck, sharp as ice. The laughter crescendoed, an unbearable symphony that diminished his courage. He would have to make a choice. He knew that now. "Ella, come to me!" He screamed, hoping the sound of his voice would break whatever curse had a grip on her. But behind him, within the scope of his flashlight, shadows enlarged, hungry and menacing, resolutely gearing up to collect their prize. Suddenly, amid the chaos and terror, a child's giggle echoed. Bright, innocent, and chilling. The very air shimmered with predatory anticipation. Mike felt the ground twist beneath him, as the closet door groaned open wide. "Time to play," the echoes whispered. Could he make it to the door? Or would they trap him in their game forever? Mike's heart raced as he gripped Ella's arm, the tension vibrating through them like a live wire. He could feel the cold, hungry breath of the shadows creeping closer, could sense the sharp twist of fear settling deep in his stomach. The echoes of laughter grew into a chorus that clawed at his mind, drowning out any rational thoughts. "Ella, listen to me. You have to fight against this," he pleaded, desperately searching her eyes for any flicker of recognition. But she stared at him, her face illuminated by the cold glow of his phone, a mask of serene bliss. "We can't stay here. We don't belong here." She smiled again, that unnervingly sweet smile, and gently pulled away from his grasp. The shadows began to curl at her feet like sentient mist, hungry and eager. "They want me, Mike," she said, her voice filled with a childlike wonder. "Don't you see? It's so much fun. We get to play forever." "No! You don't understand." Panic surged within him. Each word had to tear through the veil that had captured her. But just as he was about to step forward again, a deafening crash rang from behind him. For a second, he turned, instinctively shielding Ella. In an instant, the air around them thickened, a demonic presence settling into the room, and he saw it, a figure emerging from the shadows, twisting like smoke, its eyes glowing with malice. "Time us up, Mike," it sneered, a voice dripping with cruel delight. "You've come to play, too." He quaked, desperate for an escape. The door still stood ajar, a beacon of hope. "Ella! We can go right now. We can leave." But Ella only giggled softly, as if entranced by the ghostly figure that now danced on the edges of his vision. The demoness eyes flared brighter, feeding on her joy, coaxing her into a deeper trance. Suddenly, the demon lunged forward, shadows stretching like claws reaching for him. Time seemed to warp, his senses igniting violently. Mike spun around, sprinting for the door with all the strength his body could muster. The world around him warped, tugging at him like an unseen hand desperate to pull him back. "Mike!" Ella cried from behind him, her voice filled with confusion. He skidded to a stop, icy reality crashing over him like a wave. She was slipping, caught in the grips of darkness. "Ella, please!" His voice echoed, blending into the cacophony of laughter and whispers that filled the room, layering his words beneath the unsettling symphony. He turned back to face the demon, his heart pounding like a war drum. "Let her go!" he shouted, even as terror coursed through him. The creature recoiled slightly, as if his defiance surprised it. It leaned closer, its breath foul and hot. "But she is mine now." "No! I want to let you take her." Clutching the doorframe, Mike's resolve solidified. He stepped into the threshold, the familiar world of daylight calling to him, promising safety. But there was no turning back. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Ella, I choose you. Choose me." The air grew thick, the shadows recoiling as if stung. The presence flickered, hesitating, but Mike could see Ella still framed in the darkness, her eyes wide, struggling to comprehend. Mike helped fight it, he urged, voice cracking in desperation. In that moment, the laughter peaked, and a blinding flash erupted from the shadows, blasting outward like a shockwave. Mike felt his feet lift off the ground, the noise deafening. When the chaos receded, he found himself on the ground outside. The air was lighter, the world almost too bright. Confused, he coughed, looking back towards the house, but it felt distant now, an entity fading behind the veil of normality. "Ella!" he shouted, straining his eyes against the blinding sun. But the door remained shut, the windows opaque. Had she followed him, or had he lost her in those dark depths? An unsettling chill swept through him, whispering doubts that curled around his brain. Just then, he noticed a shadow flickering at the corner of the house, a small girl with familiar hollow eyes gazing out. With dread pooling in his chest, Mike realized they weren't done yet. "Who is she?" he breathed, recognizing the girl in the fading light. And then he heard the echo of laughter. The game was over. Mike's pulse thudded violently in his ears, drowning out everything else. He blinked, willing the brightness to clear his vision. The little girl lingered at the corner, her thin frame wrapped in shadows, her wide eyes glimmering with secrets. "Ella?" he whispered, voice barely making it past the lump in his throat. Is that you?" But the child remained silent, her gaze unblinking, anchoring him with a stare that felt all too familiar. Each second stretched painfully as he pulled himself to his feet, muscles trembling. The distant laughter twisted through the air, looping in and out like a sinister echo. "Get back!" he shouted, instinctively raising his arm to protect himself. Didn't he have a clue what she was capable of, or what she wanted? "I'm not afraid of you." But the words rang hollow, even to him. Fear gnawed at his gut as he stepped closer, as if tethered to her sad eyes. The shadowy figure still clung to the edges of his mind, whispering vile things he dared not speak. "Mike." The voice was soft and sweet, echoing from the girl. But it wasn't just any sweetness. It was Ella's voice, tugging at his heart in ways he wished he could ignore. "What do you want?" he asked, swallowing hard, trying to untangle the threads of reality from the depth of terror. "And you said you wanted to play?" The girl's lips curled into a grin, too wide, too unsettling. "We can all play, forever." He stumbled back, shaking his head vigorously. "No! You're not her. You're just a shadow." Behind him, the house creaked ominously, and shadows seemed to sway from its windows like hungry spirits. The echoing laughter erupted again, bouncing off the walls, the noise building in crescendo. Panic clawed at his throat, suffocating him with the reminder that he might have left Ella behind, left to fall more profoundly into the abyss. "Ella!" he shouted again, desperation flooding his voice. "Fight it! You're stronger than this." The girl at the corner tilted her head, a predatory look gleaming in her hollow eyes. "You don't get it," she sang, her voice lilting like a twisted lullaby. "She is mine now. And so are you." Suddenly, the air shifted, and the laughter grew darker, more malevolent, wrapping around him like a serpent ready to strike. The shadows thickened, swirling around him, drawing closer. He could feel their icy tendrils reaching for his skin, stealing his warmth. Mike turned abruptly, racing back down the gravel path he had just crossed. His breath came out in ragged gasps, hard hammering against his ribs as he sprinted for the edge of the yard, desperate for the comforting embrace of light. But his feet slowed, as if caught in molasses. He stumbled, falling to his knees, hands clawing at the ground. The foresight of darkness curled in around his chest, teasing at the corners of his mind, pulling him deeper into despair. With a surge of adrenaline, he stood again, determination igniting his core. "I won't let you take me. I'll fight." A burst of energy rippled through him, and in that moment, he felt her presence. Ella's essence pressed against his heart, whispering strength into his veins. "Fight! Ella!" he screamed out again, intent on breaking through the veil that separated them. In a wild moment, Mike turned back toward the passing shadows, prepared to confront whatever nightmare lay ahead. But just before he could move, the girl lunged, her laughter mingling with the howling wind, and for a split second, he could see Ella at the doorway, an ethereal figure bathed in the fading light, reaching for him, eyes filled with fear. And then it all went dark, dissolving into a shadow so deep it rendered everything silent. Mike awoke, gasping, on the floor of an empty street, sun blazing overhead. The house was gone, a mirage that had evaporated, and the laughter was merely a memory clawing at the edges of his sanity. "Where am I?" he whispered, heart heavy with dread. As he stood, a chill hugged his spine. Something was wrong. The peace of the day held an unsettling weight. It felt too quiet, too still. And then he noticed the little girl standing at the far end of the street, hollow eyes glinting in the sunlight. "Ready to play again?" she called, and the laughter faded back into the air like a siren's call. Where had the game begun, and where would it end? Mike's heart sank as the shadows whispered anew. Mike swayed on his feet as he took in the scene. The sun blazed, but it hardly did anything to warm him. The little girl at the street's end had a coldness about her, a heaviness in the air that made the hair on his neck stand at attention. "Ella!" His voice cracked, feeling feeble in the face of her cheeky smile. "You're out there. You can fight this." She took a step toward him, her shadow stretching languidly across the pavement. "But she doesn't want to fight, Mike. She wants to play." The street seemed to constrict around him, the buildings pressing in like spectators at a theater of dread. Where was he? This was a neighborhood he recognized. It felt unreal, an illusion draped in the colors of a Saturday afternoon. Yet he had the distinct feeling that this was a trap, a stage for some grotesque performance. Without thinking, Mike turned to run, dread propelling his feet. He sprinted down the empty street, scanning the sides for any escape, any sign of safety. He didn't dare look back at the girl, her haunting figure flickering in his periphery. His breath came in ragged bursts, each inhalation tight against the weight of panic. The laughter echoed again, harsh and mocking, ricocheting off the walls of the deserted homes. "Not so fast, Mike," a voice sang from somewhere in the distance, weaving through the shadows that crept alongside him. "It's just beginning." The words sent a shiver down his spine, but he pressed on, desperate to put distance between himself and the echoes of that mischievous laughter. In a dizzying moment, he rounded a corner and stopped short. There, standing before him, was a dilapidated playground, rusted swings swaying slightly, as if pushed by an unseen force. A large, crooked slide loomed in the back, its once bright colors now muted and peeling. "Ella!" he called, voice rising in pitch, a query laced with dread. "Are you here?" The swings creaked, and he swore he could hear whispers bouncing off the grimy slides. His heart thundered against his ribcage as he approached the swings. The chill returned, more potent now, piercing through his skin, making him shudder. "Let us play." The girl appeared again, her voice echoing from every direction. "You haven't forgotten the rules, have you?" Panic surged within him as images of the game they potentially played raced through his mind. Each memory pulled him further into the web of despair. Dark spaces filled with laughter and shadows. He pressed his palms against his head, trying to block out the sounds, the scenes that twisted around him like a wild dance. "No! I want to play." But the laughter, like shards of ice, burst into the air, constricting around him. "You don't get to decide, Mike. It's already begun." The ground beneath his feet seemed to tremble, and the playground warped, shifting as if it was alive. He stumbled back, collapsing onto the dirt, heart racing as the shadows seemed to grow teeth, snapping at the edges of his sanity. Through the chaos, he glimpsed a familiar face. "Ella?" Her expression sad, yet urging him to understand, to choose. "Mike," she cried, desperation spilling from her lips. "You have to." And just like that, she vanished, fading into the shadows that enveloped him. He clawed at the dirt, mind racing, desperation clawing away at his spirit. "No! Come back!" But the laughter transformed, mingling with the distant sound of sirens echoing in the backdrop. Mike crouched low as the playground morphed into a nightmare, shadows swirling around him, the laughter now an unholy symphony. Mike's breath hitched as realization broke through his fog of fear. This was no ordinary game. It was a game of survival. And as darkness flared around him, he made a choice, a promise rising from the depths of dread. He would fight to free Ella. He had to. So he stood, fists clenched, eyes burning with determination. "I'll find you, Ella. I want to let them want to play." The voice tilted, playful and dark, as the playground throbbed with life. But just as he began to step forward, the ground split open, and the shadows dragged him down, the shrill laughter climbing higher, echoing in sordid waves. And all at once, Mike was left hanging, teetering on the edge between light and darkness, a flicker of hope battling despair. As the ground closed over him, he wondered, in his last moment of clarity, what other horrors awaited below. What was down there? Mike tumbled into the darkness, the weight of the shadows pressing against him, smothering every gasp he tried to take. Fear wrapped around him like an icy chain. He felt no end in sight. Finally, he landed hard on damp ground, the air thick with decay, the sound of his breath ragged and choked. He blinked, trying to make sense of the blackness that surrounded him, but it swallowed his vision whole. "Where are you?" he shouted, his voice drowned in an unsettling silence that followed. "Ella!" Nothing. Just the oppressive quiet that seeped into his bones. But the whispers began again, soft at first, rising into frantic chaos, intertwining and crawling into his ears. "Play with us. Play with us." Mike's pulse raced. Were they children? Those voices? The darkness twisted around him. The sensation of tiny hands brushing against his skin made him shudder. The air thickened, hot and suffocating. "No!" he yelled. "Stop!" The laughter surged, biting into his sanity, urging him to succumb to the madness. He could feel their eyes, hundreds, maybe more, locked onto him, watching from the dark corners. He scrambled to his feet, every step a fight against the pull of despair. "Show yourself!" he roared, feeling the surge of defiance pierce through his fear. In the dim light that flickered into existence, images began to form, blurred memories of Ella intertwined with far darker shapes dancing at the edge of perception. Then, a faint light emerged, illuminating a small clearing. He stepped forward, drawn by its fragile glow. The surroundings morphed, graves cracked and forgotten, wilted flowers mingling with decay. And at the center, a tall figure loomed, skeletal and twisted. Its face, obscured by shadows, grinned as if it shared in a terrible secret. The world went cold, and Mike's heart raced faster, the laughter now mingling with a low growl that reverberated through the ground. "Welcome to the game, Mike." The voice was laced with sibilant malice, echoing in the hollow space. "You've come to play, haven't you? I'm not afraid of you," he shouted, though the quiver in his voice betrayed him. "Then how about a challenge?" The figure lifted a bony hand, and suddenly the ground trembled. The graves cracked open, shadows spilling forth, shapes writhing their limbs in chaotic dance. Mike was surrounded. "Ella! Where are you?" he cried again, panic gripping him tighter than any shadow. "Help, Mike!" came a muffled voice, unreal and distorted, breaking through the cacophony of terror surrounding him. His heart stopped. "Ella!" Was it really her? The shadows paused, and Mike felt a strange stillness enveloping him for a fraction of a moment, giving him hope. "Choose wisely," the figure hissed, and with that, a flash of light illuminated the clearing, revealing a monstrous face, a patchwork of grief and hunger. It slipped back into the shadows, and the whispers returned, clawing at his resolve. Mike took a step back, torn between the specters and the chance of reaching Ella. What was the challenge? What would it take to fight against this nightmare? Suddenly, the ground beneath him shifted. The darkness churned again, and he stumbled, grasping at the illusion of the light. A timer echoed through the air, counting down ominously. 10. The fear twisted like a knife through him. The challenge loomed large, but what was the cost of failure? 9. He clenched his fists, steel resolving within him. "I will find you, Ella. I will free you." 8. The shadows shifted closer, drawing tighter, their whispered taunt penetrating his core. Wherever she was, he could not lose her. He wouldn't. 7. What lay ahead? Would he have to give something up? Would that be the price of freedom? 6. Each second thumped like a funeral drum against his chest. Mike had no choice but to push forward into the unknown. 5. And then, with a sudden surge, The darkness around him exploded in a rush of chaotic energy. What would the shadows demand? What would he lose? For the countdown continued, the stakes rising with every tick. The voices became a furious roar, and in that moment, a single thought lodged itself in Mike's mind. Sometimes, survival costs more than you're willing to pay. 3. But would fear consume him before he could figure it all out? 2. The timer rushed to its end. 1. And in that moment, as shadows closed in, a vision flashed in the gloom, the playground flickering back to life. Yet something was not right. What had he unleashed? The world exploded into blinding light, and Mike threw his arms up to shield his eyes from the searing brightness. It felt like fire on his skin, burning away the shadows that surrounded him. The laughter faded into a shallow echo, replaced by the sound of a creaking swing swaying gently in the breeze. The familiar smell of warm asphalt mingled with the earthy scent of grass beneath him. He blinked rapidly, vision clearing, and suddenly the playground was alive. Bright colors adorned every structure, children's laughter ringing in the air like a sweet chime. A peaceful afternoon scene shattered the darkness that had wrapped around him. The panic that had gripped his heart began to loosen its hold. "Ella?" he called out tentatively, as he stepped forward into the vibrant nightmare. "Play with us, Mike." A chorus of voices rang out, innocent yet tainted. He squinted into the sun-bleached distance, searching. The swings creaked despite the absence of movement. Mike!" He froze, heart stopping. There it was again, her voice, distorted but unmistakable. Desperation ignited inside him, fueling his courage. "Ella! Where are you? Tell me. I'm coming." A giggle floated on the warm breeze, playful yet cruel, as shadows slithered back into the corners of the playground. The bright swings began to oscillate wildly, shattering the calm. Mike stepped forward, fear sparking like static on his skin. "Choose," came a voice, the familiar rasp echoing around him like a cold wind. The tall figure emerged again, shimmering in and out of the sunlight. A warped smile creased its ghastly face, eyes gleaming with malice. "You're in our world now. Will you choose to play?" Mike's breath snagged in his throat as the air grew heavy with tension. He felt the weight of countless eyes upon him, watching and waiting. "Choose what?" he demanded, hands clenched. "It's simple," the figure crooned, leaning closer. "To find her, you must make a sacrifice." The air crackled with energy, shadows swirling around Mike's feet like storm clouds, closing in. "Sacrifice?" His voice trembled, heavy with disbelief. He thought of Ella, the countless hours spent playing together, and the promise he made to protect her. "If you fail, she'll remain here, with us forever." The creature's grin grew wider, revealing jagged teeth that seemed to twist and turn into shadows themselves. Panic surged inside him. Choices spiraled in his mind like dandelion seeds caught in a whirlwind. What do I have to give? The playground morphed again, colors fading, replaced by gray desolation. The laughter of children turned sinister, echoing harshly in the stillness. "Your memories, your happiness, a piece of your soul." Mike staggered, feeling sick. The thought of losing fragments of himself for a chance to save Ella was a burden heavier than any weight he had ever known. But the urgency grew taut around him. The timer throbbed like a heartbeat, relentless, echoing. "5, please," Mike shouted, desperation flooding his voice. "I can't. I won T. For Mike, you have to find me." Ella's voice broke through again, a sweet melody tinged with fear. 3. He closed his eyes tightly against the wave of despair washing over him. Memories flooded his mind. Ella's laughter, summer days, everything that made life worth living. Could he really part with such precious fragments? To choose, Mike. The shadows thrummed with dark energy, swirling around him, getting closer. One in that final heartbeat, clarity cut through him like a knife. "No!" he screamed, voice raw. "I will not be part of your game." And in a sudden flash of defiance, the world around him shattered like glass, fragments of reality scattering into the darkness. What would it mean to resist? Would the shadows consume him whole, or would they leave him fighting for what mattered most? With shadows lurking, what came next could be the turning point or the end. The fragments of reality danced around Mike, swirling like a cyclone, drawing him to the heart of nothingness. His skin tingled with the electric pulse of fear and determination. It felt like being stretched thin, straddling two worlds. The grotesque playground behind him, where shadows lurked and laughter twisted, and this void, cold and unyielding. He plummeted into the darkness, a freefall of weightlessness. Just as he expected to land in eternal nothing, his feet scraped against something solid concrete. He opened his eyes, panting. The world around him shifted, revealing an alleyway lined with crooked buildings cloaked in shadows. "Where am I?" he whispered, dread lacing his words. The alley felt both familiar and alien, the air thick with an acrid smell of decay and something sweetly rotten. Ahead, flickering streetlights cast spindly shadows, stretching their fingers toward him. The sound of distant whispers curled around his ears, sending shivers crawling down his spine. He pressed forward, heart hammering as every step felt like a miscalculated gamble. "Ella!" he called again, voice trembling in the oppressive gloom. A soft tremor passed through the air, and the whispers grew louder, morphing into laughter, gleeful, knowing. "Find her, Mike, find her." The words danced around his mind, mocking his desperation. He pressed on, the asphalt growing rough beneath his feet. Images streamed through his memory, Ella's face, her mischievous smile, and he fought to push those thoughts aside. He couldn't afford to dwell on what he might lose, he needed to focus on what was at stake. With each passing moment, the urgency in his chest squeezed tighter. As he turned a corner, he stumbled into an eerie courtyard surrounded by looming brick walls. In the center stood a twisted, gnarled tree that seemed to writhe in agony beneath a silvery moon. Its branches reached for the sky in desperation, as if trying to escape whatever curse bound it. Mike could feel the energy throbbing in the air, a pulse that resonated with his own heartbeat. Shadows twisted and writhed around the tree, and there, nestled within the roots, lay a rusted box. He approached, feeling a magnetic force drawing him closer. Crouching beside it, he brushed dirt away, revealing a tarnished latch. In his mind, the creature's voice echoed. "Sacrifice one thing to learn the truth." "What truth?" he shouted, anger bubbling in his veins. But there was no reply, only silence echoed back to him. He unlatched the box and pried it open with shaking hands. Inside lay an assortment of trinkets, torn photographs, a child's toy, a diary that looked like it had been dipped in shadows. Each item seeped an oppressive sense of loss. Without thinking, he pulled out the diary. The moment the cover opened, a deep breath escaped him as words spiraled into existence, unfolding like a ghostly apparition. Sacrifice brings clarity, yet clarity can devour the soul. Sudden images flooded him, flashes of other faces, other children. All lost, trapped. He dropped the diary, panting. The cost was growing heavier, the decision more painful. He could feel the darkness creeping around him again, shadows growing restless, hungry. "Ella's fate rests with you, Mike." The laughter echoed, sinister and sharp. He needed to make a choice, but how could he decide what to give up? Before he could think, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Mike, help me!" Ice gripped his chest. "Ella!" he shouted, spinning around. "Where are you?" "Mike!" Her cry came again, clearer now, cutting through the veil of darkness that surrounded him. The shadows rustled, eager, pressing closer. What was he willing to lose? What would he sacrifice for her? With time ticking away, he stood at the brink, and anguish surged through him. The laughter rose in a haunting crescendo, shadows whispering promises, taunts, and truths as he faced an unthinkable decision. And somewhere, Ella's voice beckoned, an anchor in the storm. What would he ultimately choose to save her? The answer would change everything. But could he live with the consequences? Mike stood there, trembling with dread, the echoes of Ella's voice reverberating in his mind like a fading pulse. The shadows encroached, whispering secrets of despair, yet wrapped in temptation. "I will not lose her," he repeated, the resolve surging within him. He was aching to find her, to fight with every lock of strength buried deep inside. Desperately, he rubbed his hands together, snapping out of the fog. "What is the sacrifice?" he demanded, his voice firm. "I'll do it. Whatever it takes." A ripple of laughter bubbled from the dark corners. The shadows shivered with anticipation, feeding off his desperation. "A piece of you, your memories, your joy," the haunting figure taunted, the grin stretching wider, revealing jagged teeth bathed in shadow. "Choose wisely, Mike. Sacrifice what you hold dear, and the truth will reveal itself." Images of Ella flickered through his mind, her laughter swirling like sunlight on clear water. Memories burned bright, irreplaceable snapshots of life, filling him with warmth, like a father's love illuminating even the darkest days. Fear crept under his skin, but anger ignited within him. "No!" he roared. "I will not give you a single moment. Not a memory of her, not a shred of my happiness." That defiance sent shockwaves through the shadows. The sinister laughter grew frantic, as if enraged at his refusal to comply. "You will. You know the price." It hissed, a cacophony of voices clawing at the edges of his sanity. And then he remembered. He couldn't let the shadows win. They preyed on fear, despair, on the helplessness of those suffering. "Your game will not own me," he shouted, defiantly embedding his feet into the earth. "You are not strong enough." Suddenly, a blinding light burst forth from the depths of his core, a flame ignited by the spirit of love that resonated for Ella. "I won't leave you behind," he cried. The shadows recoiled, the eerie stillness settled over him, their laughter dying down to cold echoes. He felt a surge of clarity washing over him, a memory surfacing, a final piece of the puzzle. "Remember," a voice crackled in his mind, "your love can cast away darkness." With renewed purpose, Mike reached deep into the vault of his emotions. He stretched out his arms, heart pounding as he focused on the purest love he held, amplifying the connection until it pulsated into the darkness. "Ella!" he shouted, heart racing. "I'm coming! Follow my voice, remember my love." The shadows shrieked around him, a tempest of chaos spiraling, becoming frenzied. The silhouette of the tall figure faltered, mere fragments of threat clinging to its form. It realized it had underestimated the strength of love. "Your choice has been made," it howled, the sinister edge curling around its words. But the shadows shivered and flickered violently as Mike pushed forward, channeling everything he had until light burst from his fingertips, engulfing him completely. The world shifted. With a fierce clarity, he saw Ella's silhouette in a distant space, trapped but searching. He blinked, and she shone like a beacon against the black void. The light rushed out, breaking the bonds of nightmare, igniting sparkles of hope amidst the darkness. In that space, he felt the warmth of familiar arms, threads of connection that resonated across the chasm of despair. "Mike." "No!" Ella's voice echoed through the crackling air. "Close your eyes, Ella." He lunged forward, one final leap filled with purpose. Blue light illuminated the void, wrapping around them both like a protective cocoon. "This is where we belong," he declared, powering forward. The shadows recoiled, dissipating into tendrils of smoke, crushed by the essence of love unyielding against their dark claws. She stood there, eyes wide with fear, but now filled with courage. "Mike, I can feel you." "Yes." Mike's heart swelled, feelers weaving into her heart. You have to fight with me. The game doesn't own us. With hearts fused, their warmth pushed against the darkness. Slowly, unyielding memories of laughter and joy sprang to life, illuminating their path before them. Together, they rushed through the winking light, the shadows fading behind them, revealing warmth, safety, and ultimately freedom. Suddenly, blinding light engulfed them both, bursting forth into the open air, shaking off the remnants of darkness like heavy fog. They stood together, on familiar ground. The sun cast golden rays over Millhaven, illuminating the streets they had once known. It was a fresh rebirth of promise for brighter days. Breathless, they embraced each other. "We did it," he said, a smile breaking through tears. "Is it over?" she asked, worry bubbling beneath the surface. "Yeah," Mike whispered. "But if it ever comes back, we'll face it together. Always." As they stood hand in hand, determined to move into their future, the weight of dark memories faded, reminders that together, they could conquer anything. The house, a memory now, vanished into the past. Millhaven stood before them, a town filled with the laughter and love they'd reclaim. And as they turned toward the warmth of the setting sun, the shadows in the corner faded away, leaving just a whisper. Until next time, it seemed to say, echoing far into the distance. So what are you waiting for? You need to subscribe now, so you won't miss our exclusive stories. Smash the like button right now to support us and feed that algorithm. And don't wait even one more second, flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about this ending. Lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's keep the conversation alive.